performs worldly tricks to deceive people. And it's a story of the difference between the Antichrist and the Messiah. The difference is that one is built around falsehood and built around trickery, and one is built around these honest and sincere miracles which occur through this story and with everything to do with Jesus. And what it presents to you, because is which side are you on? Are you on the side of the spiritual, or are you on the side of the red hats and Costa Coffee? Because that's what the question's about. Not about whether you're Christian or Muslim. That's not actually what the issue is here. It's about which side of this are you on. Because in the description of Jesus coming to defeat the Antichrist, when he comes, according to the story of Tamim ad-Dari, which I referred to, he comes and he just breathes. And his sheer breath, meaning his presence, destroys everybody that doesn't believe in him. Why? Because of his spiritual status. So our focus, if we want to understand who Jesus is to go back to the Spirit. What's he described as? Spirit. I'm just going to finish with what Habib Ali, one of our teachers, said, and I'll quote exactly. He says, "Our relationship with the entirety of our liege lords, the prophets, consists in belief, love, faith, and the learning of lessons and wisdoms from their stories, the reports that come from them and their lives." And Jesus is a spirit from God. He's the word from God, and he's a sign from God. Sallallahu alayhi wa inshallah, I'm going to stop. See if you want to go back to those questions or any other questions. I'm sure there's some people here who've been dying to ask us questions for many years, because I haven't seen you for such a long time. Please.
The absolutely important and main thing in the Bible describing Jesus is that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that you are presenting another Jesus than Christianity.
Yeah.
Because you present the Son of Mary in word and spirit, but that's not my Jesus.
Yeah, that's true. And that's also an important difference to recognize. And I think it's better for us to understand the different perspectives and respect those perspectives, understand. And if we understand that, then we could probably live better together than if we rejected Jesus, which is what's happened. That's why I gave that story at the beginning. They took the baby out of the shopping centre because they thought it wasn't relevant. But it is relevant in different ways, because people relate to that Jesus. And it's true, there's a difference, otherwise we would have the same religion. But we don't. And that's fair enough, that's understandable.
And it also amazes me because it stands in the trosbekännelse i Islam that there is no other God than Allah.
Yeah.
Why are you not saying Allah? Why do you say God?
Me personally, I don't have a problem with saying either. I think that I'm speaking in English, and therefore I prefer to use as few Arabic words as I possibly can. And perhaps if I was speaking in an Arabic audience, I would use the word Allah. And if I was speaking in
just one more.
No, please, feel free. Absolutely. I'm here to discuss, and I think this is very important, that we speak to each other honestly, to understand how we understand Jesus. And I think this is important for us to at least be talking about this important person.
And,
so please go ahead.
Yeah, because Allah, he has no son.
Yeah.
But my God he has the one Jesus who came to save us, who came to die on the cross, to take our sins.
Yeah.
So we see that it's Islam and Christianity is different.
Absolutely, and I didn't in any way pretend. I hope I didn't give anybody the impression that I was presenting a Christian view. I think my intention, as what I was asked to do, was to present Jesus in the Islamic context. I think the title I was given was Jesus in Islam. So that's not what my intention was to say that we all believe in the same religion. I'm trying to do what I was asked to do, which was to present Islam, present Jesus as is explained in the Islamic text. And I think that's what I tried to do. And if I gave the impression that I was going to do anything different, I apologise. That wasn't what and I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think the more we try to understand each other, the more likely we are to get on in a better way. But I think when we don't talk to each other and we don't recognise that actually Jesus is really important, but we just understand him differently. I'd rather be talking about that than talking about a lot of the other rubbish that's going on in the world. I'd rather be discussing our differences about this very fundamental person. And in that way, we can actually relate to each other better, I think, personally. And I hope that's what, I think that was it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I mean, it brings me back to a time where many years ago, when the Church of England were very much looking towards their stance on ecumenical issues, how the Christian denominations should function within relate to each other. And the Church of England appointed an ecumenical leader to take these discussions forward. He just happened to be in the church next to where I worked. So he contacted me and we became friends. And we decided that interfaith work would be useful. So we started to work on interfaith work. But I said, I'm not going to become Christian. I don't intend to become Christian, and I don't expect you to become Muslim. So there's no need for us to try and convert each other. That's not. He says, but that doesn't mean we can't work. Let's work together to start to talk about issues. So we did. But on a personal level, we became very, very close friends. We never talked about religion in front of anybody. And that one of the reasons was because he represented the Church of England. And it wasn't appropriate for him to have these public discussions. But in private, we had wonderful discussions. We became very, very close friends. Very, very close friends. And I think that's what was important, was that Jesus actually was central to our discussions. I loved Jesus, he loved Jesus. But we understood him slightly differently. But the fact that we loved him meant that we had something to talk about. We had some bonding, which meant that we could then face the commercial world in a different way. And I hope that that's what will happen between our the Muslim community and the Christian community. That's what my hope is. And I sense that that's probably your hope too. Please.
So, thank you for a very interesting lecture. Many things worth talking about, but I would like to reference what the lady here in the back just said. There is a famous saying about Americans and Britons, that they are divided by a common language. I think many of you will recognize that. Christians and Muslims are connected by Jesus, but also divided by Jesus. Christians and Muslims alike believe in Jesus, believe he was born of the Virgin Mary, believe he was, or is rather, the Messiah.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there are some irreconcilable differences.
Yeah.
The doctrine of the Trinity doesn't fit with Islamic theology. There's no way we can change that. And I would like to bring all of us, bring to the attention of all of us, that the Bible, as well as the Quran, to the best of my understanding, We'll emphasize that God is full of mercy and grace, and He is just. I hope I'm not wrong if I say He's also loving. He loves us.
Absolutely.
Now, a God who is graceful, merciful, just, and loving. What do we think about this God that we worship and to whom we bow down? Is He requiring, does He require of us that we hold the correct beliefs about things? Will we be condemned by God if we make a mistake? If we honestly think Jesus is the second person in the triune God, and God says, I'm sorry, but you got it all wrong. I cannot accept you. Or is God looking for honesty and sincerity and wholehearted submission to what we, to the best of our ability, think is the will of God, and the proper way to worship Him, the proper way to try to live according to His will, and try to be loving and friendly and good towards our fellow human beings, whether they share our faith or not. And as you can probably sense, I lean to the later interpretation here. I do not think the crucial issue is whether we are right or wrong on certain fine points in theology. I think God looks to our hearts. So, but if we take the other position, if you have to be correct, then there is just no way Christians and Muslims can look at each other, regard each other as being brothers and sisters, because the other party is by definition wrong, and is by definition causing problems, taking people away from the true faith. So then we really have a problem. And I think it's better to be humble enough to say, I think this is so, and I respect those of you who believe differently, because at the end of the day, we all believe in God.
And I think that's a practical position to be. I think you, please.
But in the Bible, Jesus Himself says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And He says that nobody comes to heaven without through me, the Son of God. Then I believe that that is correct. I believe that Jesus, God's Son, is speaking. But then it means that there is, like we say, one way. There is one way to God, and that is through the Son, Jesus Christ. So, like you said, we come together, we learn, we speak, we talk, and then we also have to find out, oh, is it like that? Is it so? Well, this is also an important thing in Christianity.
Yeah, and that's taking Ole Jørgen's point.
Yeah.
That's there are two positions you can take. Is my correctness and my certainty that I'm going to heaven the priority? Is that the thing that drives me? And it's not, in my understanding. Firstly, I don't know whether I'm going to get there, and I accept that I need to work to get there, and I'll put my emphasis on living in this world, which is holding the tree, and living my life in the way which is the best possible way, in the hope that I will get there. And I'm actually less bothered about whether anybody else is going to get there than I am about whether I live a life which is right. And taking the emphasis of who's going and who's not going, for me, helps me to live. And if I was to focus on condemning people to hellfire, or promising people the garden, then I think I would have missed the point of life, and I think I may end up wasting my life by concentrating on things which don't help me. And what I would rather do is live my life in such a way that I can focus on being good and having a good life. So I accept the positions that you described and the position that you've taken, which is that, yes, some people are going to heaven and these are the people that are going to be there. Maybe so, but for me it's not a big